I want to give a warm welcoming to all my radical and critical thinkers out there to this new series that will be titled Power Shift, the BRICS Plus Effect. It is a similar title to my podcast series that I did. In that series, I talk about the historical foundation of BRICS. If you would want to get more information, I suggest you watching it. It is called The Power Shift, the BRICS Effect on Spotify by Josue Rodriguez, myself. And this series will be focused on how BRICS is restructuring regional markets, how it's influencing economic transactions, and how it's also proposing alternative forms of transactions in regional geographical locations, and how it's also giving alternative forms of transaction to countries and developing nations. In this series, we're gonna start off on episode right off the bat. In episode 1, for instance, we'll be looking at how the now renamed BRICS Plus is meddling in sparking new regional and international economic investments and preparing itself for the new technological revolution and the rising demand for natural resources. Also, how countries and BRICS have control of minerals that will be essential for the production of artificial intelligence and this new technological revolution. In this podcast, however, we'll be focusing in 4 major regions, and they will be split up into 4 different segments. The first segment will be the Middle East. We'll be focusing on the Middle East and how BRICS is influencing the Middle East and creating ties in the Middle East, and also proposing alternatives to the Middle Eastern countries other than the United States. And with the war in Gaza or Palestine, this is very interesting to see this nearness that is happening since Trump took office, and these wars, how they're influencing these relations. Also, we'll be focusing in Africa and how BRICS is developing Africa and also creating ties and networks there as well. The third segment will be Asia and how BRICS is investing in Asia and also the Indo-Pacific regions, and attempting to create stronger ties in the region to stimulate economic development and interactions. And then fourth and finally, we'll be focusing in Latin America and how BRICS is attempting to enter Latin America and help Latin American countries stimulate growth and also give an alternative to American democracy as we've come to know it here in Latin America, that democratic dream that they try to impose on Latin American countries or any country that doesn't have nuclear arms, right? One quote I would like to present is that of international relations scholar Stuart Patrick, and how he explains in his analysis BRICS expansion, the G20, and the future of world order. BRICS Plus is a framework that gives emerging and middle powers a platform to push forward a multipolar world, one that directly challenges the long-standing US-dominated global order. Now, let's get into it. Segment 1. Middle Eastern Geo-Economic Shakeup. Now, according to Morel Ferragon in his article, What is the BRICS Group and Why is it Expanding? He states that The addition of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates would bring in two of the biggest economies in the Arab world and the second and the eighth top oil producers globally. So, BRICS, adding Saudi Arabia and the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, is a significant step into taking more of a affirmative and substantial growth in terms of oil, and considering that Saudi Arabia is the developing nation and also seems to become a world leader because of the recent meetings with Trump and their diversification of their economy. Also, all the foreign investment that Saudi Arabia has received makes it a huge world player. And the United Arab Emirates also has its wealth and petrol. And the addition of Iran also is a pivotal growth or addition to BRICS Plus, the newly renowned BRICS Plus. Iran, although it was struck by the United States and Israel, it also, I feel like all these conflicts are strengthening this need or want of Middle Eastern countries to be part of the BRICS, because the BRICS stands to attempt to create an alternative to the Western-led system of, for example, Bretton Woods and institutions that have failed the world and only favored the elite. And the addition of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iran, huge players in petrol, and also Saudi Arabia, like I was stating, they've diversified their economy, their investments. Now they're in boxing, they're in the UFC, like they're really diversified. Their economy is not as dependent on oil as it used to be. Now that some of the biggest Middle Eastern oil producers have joined BRICS, that alone has cracked the foundation of the global energy market. And honestly, this is the beginning of the post-petrol era. For almost 50 years, the world bought oil exclusively in US dollar and the creation of the petrodollar. So now this will be a knockout, or what some would say a stunning blow to the Western-led system, because the United States, it used to be backed by gold, and then after it was taken off the gold standard, it was backed by petrol. And now if it loses that, what can it, I don't know what else it could be backed by, but besides military might. And I feel like in a world order that isn't sufficient. I think that should not be the case. And for generations like the ones that follow, I think we should create a more just world where just military might is not the only solution, and the ones that benefit from that are the military industrial complexes. Coming back to the point, the trading of oil and other currencies besides the US and this petrodollar is creating the foundation of a new form of transactions between countries. Don't have to solely be on the US dollar. Local currencies can be used as well. And I feel like these are the steps to a new multipolar world that the BRICS imagines. And Saudi Arabia accepting multiple currencies in oil is also interesting, because Saudi Arabia is like playing both sides of the fence. has strong ties with the United States, but it also has its disagreements with the United States and Israel, and it also has strong ties with BRICS. Is starting to build strong ties with BRICS, and I feel like these conflicts in the Middle East, for example, Palestine, is creating more of a need for Saudi Arabia to look for alternatives, because the United States and Israel, they seem to be disobeying international laws. This abuse of international law is one thing, but on the other side, one also sees these agreements between the United States and Saudi Arabia on the Palestinian conflict, and it seems like there's economic interest on the Gaza Strip and creating it into a resort like Trump and many elite or rich people want to do. Speaking of these transactions done not using the petrodollar, Iran trades with Russia and China oil without even touching the dollar. And BRICS is showing that the United States, through these sanctions and tariffs and embargoes, there's a possibility to exist and coexist without having to be part of the United States whole game. And in the article, Saudi-China ties in the renminbi-based oil trade by Charles Chang, Vishrut Rana, Zahabia Gupta, and Valeris Resvis. They state that China's push for the yuan-based oil trade with Saudi Arabia began with President Xi's first visit to the kingdom in January 2016. 2 years later, in March 2018, the Shanghai International Energy Exchange launched its first ever renminbi denominated crude oil futures contracts, establishing a yuan-based oil pricing system and an international benchmark that competes with the US's West Texas Intermediate and London's Brent. And this is so critical because what China is doing with the yuan and the yuan the petro yuan, is that they're trying to compete with the United States and even London's petrol. And it's fascinating to see how this shift is happening. However, it is also frightening because China, although it poses an alternative to Western-led system, China also has their issues. Well, they have a questionable rep. They are taking steps to become the next, possibly, world hegemony. The BRICS states that they want to create a multipolar world. I would love a multipolar world. However, with China's power and their means to produce en masse, it gives for room for them to invade other markets, as shown in recent years. Another good article that I read in my investigation is titled "The BRICS Come to the Middle East and North Africa" by Mark N. Katz. And he states that for Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE in particular, joining BRICS is a statement that while they cooperate with the United States, and the West, they also cooperate with Russia and China, and that the West will have to accept this. These mass producers of gas doing deals outside of the US dollar, this isn't just symbolic, this is structural. This is hitting at the structural foundation of the Western led world order. The Middle East is no longer bound to one financial orbit. It is becoming a player in the world game. The Middle East is diversifying its investments as well as its alliances. And it is fascinating to see how the Middle East is taking steps to join BRICS and also help invest in other nations, developing nations. It's understandable with the new technological revolution and the need for mineral resources and also raw resources. These diverse transactions, they change everything from oil prices to US influence to global currency competition. Let's move on to segment 2, Asia's strategic rewiring. Asia is home to two of the world's biggest giants, population-wise, economic-wise, military-wise, India and China. They are two big players in the region, in the regional markets, also the regional structuring of the Indo-Pacific region. BRICS has both of them in their membership. Two of the founding nations, although we have to remember that BRICS is it's an organization that meets every year. It doesn't have a military force. However, if it did, it'd be the biggest military force in the world, including who is in their memberships. But in Asia, India and China have had their regional tensions, border disputes. Although there exist these tensions, the rise of Trump to his second presidency has put a twist on everything and has united certain bitter friends in creating an alternative system. In the article titled Trump Wages Economic War on U.S. Allies While BRICS Builds Alternative System by Ben Norton and Michael Hudson, they state that in depth, Trump's tariffs and economic war against its own allies in the Indo-Pacific region has created this strengthening of Indo-Pacific countries and their alliance. For example, China and India, with the rise of Trump and his tariff frenzy, because as we know, he loves that word. Tariffs. Trump's tariff frenzy has brought these countries closer and also created this need to have transactions in currencies, not the dollar. Start strengthening regional currencies, and BRICS is influencing the Asian region by creating an alternative to the U.S. dollar and starting to lean away from it and their dependence on that dollar that has long been part of world economic transactions. Now, concerning the Asian region and Middle East region, it is fascinating to hear about this not new initiative because it's been planned since 2000, but that I've recently heard of is the International North-South Transport Corridor, INSTC. And in the article by Vahirim content team, it goes into depth into this proposition. It explains how this was first proposed in September 12th of 2000 in St. Petersburg, and The objective is to join Russia all the way to the Middle East. And if we look at the map, it cuts through land instead of through sea, which right now most of the transport that goes down to the Middle East is done by sea, and it goes through the Suez Canal. And since the blocking of the Suez Canal that stopped global trade and global supply chains, I feel like this initiative or this proposal is more relevant than ever. Also, a lot of people have been talking about this, and it proposes at creating a land and sea travel. And this corridor basically it wants to cut the travel time in half. The proposal of this corridor is foundational because it gives an alternative for getting supplies from Russia to India, and it also cuts travel time in half. This was going to include 11 countries. However, it's been proposed since 2000. We're in 2025 now. 25 years have passed, and it really hasn't advanced. And also, it's also been halted because of the war in Ukraine. It has diverted resources to the war, and that military project, or what do they call it? Military experiment. um, and so this hasn't been invested in. And also, China has other railways that it wants to build in Russia, so it's got money invested over there as well. And so this project is facing a lot of challenges. However, there's immense benefits for its construction and its follow through. However, I can see how the conflicts hinder its progress and its completion. Also, how there's countries in the western part of the world that wouldn't want them to complete this because it would reduce revenues from the Suez Canal path and control that they have in that region, in that transport route. So in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, their interest in BRICS and their interaction in BRICS is fascinating because they're mass oil producers, and also they seem to be playing both sides with the United States and with BRICS. And it's intriguing to see their diversity in investments as well as alliances. And in Asia, we can see this unification of countries that seem to be at odds in order to unite against the bigger foe, which is the United States, and their colonialistic form of viewing the world. For example, the Monroe Doctrine, and how Trump has brought up the Monroe Doctrine again, basically undermining sovereignty and restating that America is destined to rule the whole world, which the world doesn't buy anymore. We're much more educated, much more informed than in the past. So the creation of a multipolar world, it's in need. It's been needed. I think it's been long overdue. And the shifts that BRICS is causing in these regional markets is interesting to see. For example, in the Middle East, we have countries like Saudi Arabia meeting with Iran and discussing political concerns in the region, and Saudi Arabia attempting to be that peacekeeper. However, they have their dirt, they have their human rights abuses, their proxy wars. However, they're trying to take part in this multipolar world that is being constructed or attempted to be constructed. And it seems like they're weighing their options. They're at the same time getting a lot of military equipment from the United States, but they're also weighing their options concerning BRICS and the possibilities that could be in interacting or transacting petrol, gas, energy, and other currencies that are not the US, starting to lean away from this petrodollar. And when that happens, that will be interesting. This episode has focused on 2 segments of the 4 that we'll be analyzing. In the next one, we'll be analyzing Africa and how the BRICS is meddling with Africa and that regional market, also benefiting from it. And in the 4th segment, we'll focus on Latin America and how this whole transition to the multipolar world is also unraveling and engulfing Latin America, and how Latin America also desires an alternative to the Western-led system, because for long Latin America has been the United States stepping ground and we haven't really benefited from anything. And if we migrate to the United States, it's like they reject us, but however our countries don't advance, and it's just a submissive atmosphere that frustrates and these next 2 segments will be very interesting and deep. So stick around and come back.